Pururaucas, when the god Viracocha turned stones into soldiers. The Andean legend tells of a unique battle where the Incas were outnumbered. They invoke their highest deity Viracocha, who responds by turning rocks into soldiers. And here we'll put the myth in light of the ancient astronaut hypothesis. Could the rock soldiers be a weapon used by the Inca god himself to save his people? The conflict of the Incas with the Canchas is perhaps the best known and decisive episode in its history. It was in 1438 that the Hanan Cancha leader Anku Hualok gathered more than 40,000 men of war and undertook the conquest of Cusco, destroying everything in its path until it surrounded the city. It's said that the Inca ruler Hatun Topac Viracocha Inca and his son, the crown prince Urco, fled cowardly from the capital, abandoning the Cusco people to their fate before the imminent arrival of the powerful Cancha army. Anarchy reigned then until the young Prince Kusi Yupanqui Pachakutek Inca, Urco's youngest brother and second in succession, courageously led the resistance. Kusi Yupanqui recruited some neighboring ethnic groups to defend the city from the large enemy army, but no one wanted to join them more than the ethnic group of the Canas. In the face of this adversity, the prince went in his prayers to the creator god Viracocha Pachachaki, who finally appears to him in a dream and tells him that he will send soldiers to assist him in the unequal fight, in addition to promising him an overwhelming victory. One day after the dream, the Canchas are stationed on Carmenca Hill, looking towards what they thought would be an easy conquest. The battle is imminent between the invaders and the defenders of the city. And it is at this moment when the unthinkable happens. The surrounding stones are transformed into warriors who attack the Canchas at their discretion, knocking them back. As the god Viracocha had promised the prince, the Incas, motivated by this divine act, win the battle, and once their mission is accomplished, the mysterious the stone soldiers return to their original form of being stones. Later, several of the rocks that had come to life, quote-unquote, would be taken to different temples and worshipped as huacas, or idols. The glory of Viracocha. So far, the legend, Orthodox historians believe that the stone soldiers called Pururaucas were only part of a cunning ploy that consisted of disguising rock molds as soldiers and locating them in such a way that the Canchas thought that the Incas were more numerous. Others affirm that many of the ethnic groups that at first refused to participate in the conflict waited to observe that side gained advantage on the battlefield to join them, thus giving the impression of having come out of nowhere from the rocks themselves. However, perhaps these interpretations will remain small if you consider the military power of the Canchas and the nature of the god Viracocha. According to alleged Inca sources, the Hanan Canchas were very fierce at the time of the fight. When they captured the enemy, they made him a prisoner of war. They gave them cruel punishments to demonstrate to the enemy that they should not mess with them. They scalped them, and that is, while the prisoners were still alive, tearing off their skin, hung them upside down so that the blood concentrated in the upper part of the body, and made small cuts in the front of their toes. That's where they started to tear off the skin little by little, while the prisoner yelled in terror. Another form of intimidation consists of making cups from the skulls of the prisoners where they drank the blood of the enemies. Taking into account such bloodthirsty level on the part of the Canchas, it's difficult to even imagine that they were frightened by stone disguised as soldiers, or that they fled in terror at any surprise attack from another ethnic group that mathematically would not have been able to potentially surpass their army. As for the Viracocha, an instructor god, quote-unquote, who could find interesting parallels with Kukulkan, Mayan or Quetzalcoatl Aztec or Oannes Sumerian, among others, is described as the maker and at the same time as a more mundane mythical hero. He is also known as the god of the staffs or of the rods because he carried one of these objects that, if we stick to the legend and representations, perhaps it could be or be used as a weapon. According to the historian Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa, there was an occasion when the inhabitants of the town of Caxa decided to kill Viracocha, annoyed by his clothing and his strange bearing. Quote, they had already taken up arms against him. When Viracocha knew of his evil intentions, he knelt in a flat place and raised his folded arms and looked at the sky, and from above it rained fire on those who were on the mountain and burned the whole place. Earth and stones burned like straw. Terror seized the evil persecutors before that dreadful fire, and they rushed to where Viracocha was, throwing themselves at his feet in demand of grace. Viracocha, won by compassion, went to the fire and put it out with his staff, but the mount was burning and the stones themselves had become so light as a result of the enormous heat of the fire that a man could now easily carry some that normally could not have transported a car, which can be seen today. And it's a marvelous thing of this place and mount that everything has been devastated in a quarter of league. It is in the province of Collao, end quote. A staff capable of mastering the elements of nature at will? Is it perhaps a staff as powerful as the one that Moses used to invoke Yahweh, and that he intercedes for his people, devastating Egyptian lands with frightful plagues? As the god of the Hebrews, Viracocha was able to have his chosen people in the Incas and protect them from the Chancas with a technology capable of levitating the stones and using them as projectiles. It's logical to think that the bloody Chancas fled when they witnessed this magic, quote unquote, that exceeded not only their military capacity, but also their capacity for understanding. And this is on Infinity Explorers by Ansh Srivastava. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.